Hi, I'm Kaylee, and these are the books that I read in November. I had a really great reading month in November. I read 20 books, plus one book that I DNF'd. I read 5 middle grade, 6 children books, 2 classics, 2 sci-fi books, 2 nonfiction, and 3 fantasy. Plus, I also DNF'd a book. As always, we're going to start with the classics. I finished reading Paul Faber Surgeon, which was actually part of my Victober reading, but I finished it like November 5th or something like that. This is the second book in the Thomas Wingfold Curate series by George MacDonald. So Paul Faber is an atheist, but he still remains friends with Thomas Wingfold, the curate. And the two have lively discussions about God and Christianity. One day, Paul is called to the bedside of a young woman, and with his skill as a doctor, he brings her back from the brink of death. And Juliet is just kind of a lukewarm Christian, and she starts to think that maybe Paul is right. Maybe there is no God. Their romance is overshadowed by secrets from their past. I just really love this story about different people with various personalities and difficulties, and they're all seeking after God. They're just trying to pinpoint, what do they really believe about Christ? And each of them in their own ways, they begin to realize they just can't dismiss the person of Christ. And they can't just keep attending church because it's socially acceptable. They have to make a decision about whether or not they're going to accept Christ in their lives. I just love MacDonald's writing style. It's so poignant, so deeply thoughtful and emotional. I gave Paul Faber Surgeon 4.5 stars. I tried to read The Good Soldier by Ford Madox Ford, and this is the one that I ended up DNFing. So this is about a guy that finds out that his wife has been cheating on him with this other guy, but everyone describes that other guy, he's a good guy, he's a good soldier. He's well respected. He's a military man. And so the whole book is about him saying like, I didn't realize and I trusted him. And it's just awful. It's just really, really horrendous. So I made it to page 62 and then DNF'd it and gave it 1 star. The other classic that I read was Burning Beauty by Temple Bailey. This is about Virginia, who is overshadowed by her selfish brother, Ricky. He is convinced he has the genius to write a best-selling book, which he has titled Burning Beauty. He potentially sells the unfinished manuscript to a famous editor, Michael Macmillan, who is smitten with the lovely Virginia. But Virginia is also being wooed by the rich, very wealthy Anthony, and she has to choose, will she marry for money or for love? I really loved this sweet romance. It's very clean and wholesome. I really liked that the romance is not just about falling in love, but about having integrity, having the courage to face the truth, and kind of figuring out who do you want to live your life with and meet the challenges of life together. So a lot of it was more about personal identity and integrity rather than so much about the just very sweetsy romance. And of course, I especially liked the Christian themes in the book, as the characters sometimes look to God for inspiration, for courage. The Christian themes are very subtle, but that Christian worldview is underlying all the decisions that the characters make. The writing is delightful, and I loved that the middle of the book is actually set at Christmas. So it kind of starts in the fall, and then it goes through Christmas time, and then it finishes up in the spring. So I was like, oh, it's perfect for some of those lovely Christmassy scenes in the middle of the book. It was really interesting to explore the nature of creativity and genius through Ricky's attempts at writing a successful novel. He has great ideas, but then they fall flat when he tries to write them out. So it was kind of interesting through his character to have this exploration of the nature of creativity. I loved this book and I gave it 4 stars. I don't know if it counts as a classic, but I also read The House on the Strand by Daphne du Maurier. I believe this was published in the 1960s sometime. So does that count as a classic, modern classic, something? This is about Dick Young, who agrees to take an experimental drug that his friend Magnus has been developing. And Magnus claims that the mind, under the influence of the drug, can time travel back to the 1330s. while the body actually stays in the present. So it's just your mind that goes back in time. So you can observe, but you can't change anything back in time. So Dick becomes obsessed with the people that he meets back in history. He has to keep taking more and more of the drug so that he can continue visiting the past. And eventually he becomes addicted to the drug. He ignores his family, his responsibilities in life, and he's focused only on acquiring more of the drug so that he can discover the fate of the beautiful Lady Isolde back in medieval Cornwall. I just hated this book so much. After the last couple of Daphne du Maurier that I read, I swore that I would never read another book from this author. And yet, here I am. I read another one. It was in the wrapped books. And so I was like, fine, I'll just read it, whatever. But the whole story is just full of really nasty things and disturbing, immoral scenes. And I hated Dick's character. It was distressing to see his descent into addiction. It was just really nasty. All of it was just so grotesque. This is a book that has been screened on the Screen It First website. And so if you want to know why it was so nasty and immoral and why I hated it so much, then you can go check it out on the Screen It First website to see exactly what was so objectionable. I did end up reading the whole thing though. I was like, just got to plow through. I've just got to keep going and just make it to the end. And I did. I've also been reading the Bunns Rising series, and I've been listening to it on audiobook and really enjoying the audiobooks. So I've been getting the audiobooks from my library through the Libby app. And unfortunately, Oversea Under Stone, the first book in the series, is not actually available for another 4 weeks. So I'm like the third person in line to have that one on hold. However, I've reread that one so many times that I decided to go ahead and skip ahead. I am going to go back and reread Oversea Under Stone when it becomes available on Libby, but I decided I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest of the series for now. So I read the second book, The Darkest Rising, and enjoyed that one so much, and then I reread Greenwitch as well. In The Darkest Rising, Will Stanton is the seventh son of a seventh son, and on his 11th birthday, he discovers that he is actually what's called an Old One, a special race of people who are endowed with magical abilities so that they can protect humanity from the dark. Will is trained in his new abilities by Merriman Lyon, who is like the modern Merlin. And Will is sent on a quest through time to retrieve the signs, which will help the light to keep back the Dark Rider. Every time that I reread this series, I am just struck with the beauty of the magic, the relationships between the old ones, and especially Merriman and Will as they're going through his training. It's just so perfectly written. I really love the strong character development that Will has. He grows up very quickly, within just a few weeks, just a few days even. He's just an ordinary little boy at the beginning of the story, doing his Christmas shopping. But by the end of the book, he has the wisdom and the knowledge of an old one. And of course, this was the perfect time of year to read this one because it is set at Christmas. The audiobook that I listened to was narrated by Alex Jennings, and I just love his narration. It is just so perfect in every particular. I gave The Darkest Rising 4.5 stars, and then I went right ahead and listened to Greenwitch, which is also narrated by Alex Jennings. So in Greenwitch, Will Stanton and Merriman are concerned about the theft of the Holy Grail, and they recruit the children from the first book, Simon, Jane, and Barney, to help them find it. They all visit Cornwall during their holidays just in time for the ceremony of the Greenwitch, where the locals fashion a woman made out of rowan and hawthorn branches, and they cast the figure into the sea for good luck in their fishing and their crops. Jane is the only one who is invited to witness the Greenwitch being created, and she makes a wish on the Greenwitch that could change everything. This book is really wonderful because we see Jane kind of coming into her own. She's growing up. She's starting to realize that she has certain talents that the other people around her don't have. She's just sensitive to magic in ways that the others aren't. And Merriman especially recognizes Jane's special talents and really values her as part of the team. In this book, it's really interesting to see this story told from different perspectives because Jane, Simon, and Barney, they don't know that Will is an old one. As regular humans, they are naturally shielded from much of the magic of the dark. But then we get to see Merriman and Will doing magical old one stuff kind of behind everyone else's back and erasing people's memories so they don't get upset by things they can't understand because they're just normal humans. So there are these layers of knowledge in the story, and it's really interesting to see where they intersect. The writing is just so powerful, so immersive. I love the fight between good and evil. I gave Greenwitch 4 stars. I continued with the Young Wizard series and read book 9, A Wizard of Mars. This is another one that I listened to on audiobook. No wonder I got so much reading done in November because a lot of that was audiobooks. In A Wizard of Mars, wizards have been pondering the Mars problem for hundreds of years, searching for a message that may have been left behind by a long dead and forgotten Martian race. Kit is especially obsessed with exploring Mars and looking for answers, and when he discovers a mysterious magical presence, he is swept into a series of encounters that changes his very identity. As always, it is utterly impossible to describe the wonder, the grandeur, the sheer enchantment of a book from the Young Wizard series. I especially love that the wizards, they have these untold great magical powers, and they also have these little down-to-earth moments where they're just sitting eating a bowl of cereal at breakfast. They have to find their favorite tennis shoes before they go off to fight in an interplanetary war or something. That blending of the mystical and the familiar is what makes these books so great. The plot in this one really kept me guessing and wondering. There's this series of mysterious scenes that happen on Mars, and they are all actually wizardly constructs of a previously set up spell, and it's making up these constructs from human memories. So it's scanning your brain, taking out your memories, and then constructing this vision around that. So there are these puzzle aspects of the plot as they try to decipher what is this Martian spell trying to tell them. It's trying to communicate with them in a way that it thinks they can understand, but it all just gets lost in translation. So they have to kind of uncover these clues and try to figure things out. And I always love those kind of puzzle aspects in a plot. I just loved it, and I gave A Wizard of Mars 5 stars. I also reread Quest of the Dragon's Princess. So the audiobook just came out. I've already read this one last year in 2024. I read the paperback, and then the audiobook just came out. So I was like, I'm just going to read it again. The author was kind enough to send me a link where I could download the audiobook for free. So I did sort of receive this one in exchange for a free and honest review from the author. Although, I had already previously reviewed it the year before, so that's okay. I've already done a whole video about this one when I read it the first time, so you can go over and see my video for how much I loved Quest of the Dragon's Princess, and especially all of the Christian themes in this book. So I will link that in the description, so you can go over and see how much I loved this one. I also read DragonFire. This is the 4th book in the Dragon Keeper Chronicles by Donita K. Paul. So in this 4th book, Kale and Barden are forced to go on separate quests, and they do not like being apart. They feel like they are a much better team together, but circumstances, and they have to go on separate quests for most of the book. So we're following 2 different storylines. Kale goes with her father to recruit as many dragons as they can to fight in the war against the evil wizards. And Barden is sent to shore up the defenses along the coast against an attack of monstrous octopi. I just love this book so much. The magic, the dragons, the quests, it's all perfect. But of course, the best parts are the spiritual themes, the Christian wisdom that is running through the book. The world building is amazing, and we get to see all these different types of dragons. As Kale and her father are working as dragon keepers, they have a special connection to different dragons. Every character is really original and well-rounded and interesting. I have been enjoying this whole series so much, and I gave this 4th book 5 stars. Another one of my wrapped books was Esperanza Rising, which I think is lovely because her name literally means hope. So it's both that she as a person is rising as her hope in life rises as well. So Esperanza is used to living on a wealthy ranch in Mexico with her family. She's always had servants and beautiful clothes and pretty dolls. But when her father is murdered by bandits, they lose their home and all their wealth. Esperanza and her mother travel to California, where they get work as harvest laborers. And now Esperanza lives in a tiny shack in a migrant camp, and she has to work hard and learn new skills to survive. This was just such a beautiful book. It's really emotional to read about just this devastation and so much loss in Esperanza's life. But it's equally inspiring to see how she grows and gains strength through those trials. But the best part of this book is the close relationship between Esperanza and her family. They have this really affectionate connection that is just so lovely to read about. And you can see that that is the source of their hope and their strength. I gave this book 5 stars, absolutely beautiful. I also read The Wheel on the School, which is a Newbery winner. Lena is the only girl at the village school, and she starts asking why storks don't come to nest in their little seaside village, and all the other school children begin to wonder why as well. And they notice that other villages have old wheels on their roofs. So the storks have a place to build their nest on the wheel. They start asking around if they can find an old wheel to put on the roof of their schoolhouse, but it's more difficult than they imagine to find a wheel because, most wheels are being used on wagons. They're not just sitting around for anybody. As the obstacles against them continue to grow, the children refuse to give up, and soon the whole village is helping them, hoping to attract the good luck that storks bring with them. It was really lovely to see how the children bring together characters from the village that would never otherwise have really interacted with each other. Through the project to bring storks to their village, they are inspired to come together in generosity and goodwill, whereas some of the village characters are usually kind of stingy and grumpy. This is such a beautiful book. It's just full of fun and pure joy, and I gave it 5 stars. I also read The Secret of Whitestone Gate, which is the 2nd book in the Black Hollow Lane series. So Emmy is back for her 2nd year at the exclusive Wellsworth boarding school, and she's eager to reconnect with her friends Lola and Jack. When the Order frames Lola for stealing and gets her expelled, they tell Emmy that they will bring Lola back to school if Emmy tells them where to find her father. The problem is, Emmy doesn't know where her father is, and she has to decide if she can trust her friends to help with their plans to circumvent the evil order and get Lola back to school. This book isn't as good as the first one because we already know a lot of the mystery surrounding the Black Hollow Lane, but I still enjoyed it, and I really do like these characters. I especially love the scene where Emmy finally meets her father face to face, and they're able to reconnect after a decade apart. It was just so touching and emotional. I really wish that there were more books in the series. There are only these 2 books, and then I guess it just fizzled out and they never wrote anymore. So the plot is sort of wrapped up, but there are still a lot of questions left where the rest of the series could have continued. But I ended up giving this book 3 stars. For Nonfiction November, I read 2 nonfiction books, and then I have another 2 books that I'm still in the middle of. I'm in the middle of reading The Highly Sensitive Person, which I am a highly sensitive person, so it's just like any other personality trait, like being introverted or extroverted. There are pros and cons, and you have to kind of learn to cope with the cons and hopefully lean into your strengths and enjoy the pros of whatever personality trait that you have. I'm also in the middle of reading From Aristotle to Christ and really enjoying it quite a lot. I'm glad that I read these in order because you really do have to read From Plato to Christ first, because then From Aristotle to Christ kind of shows how Aristotle learned from his teacher Plato, but then had different ideas. So I'm still enjoying both of those, still reading through those. But in November, I finished reading Joseph, A Man of Integrity and Forgiveness. I did not enjoy this one as much as I kind of expected to. I really love the story of Joseph, and I find it very inspirational, but this book was just kind of like the Sunday school version, almost just too simplistic and just kind of obvious lessons or obvious conclusions that you can draw from the story of Joseph. It was fine, it was good, everything was correct. I just felt like the writing style was really redundant and it just wasn't anything particularly new or inspirational or deep or insightful. It was just kind of surface level Sunday school version. So I gave that one 3 stars. I also read a little short book, Epic, The Story God is Telling by John Eldredge. This one talks about how the story of all of reality is the story of how God created a universe with love and gave mankind free will. So the villain of the story is at war with mankind and tries to defeat each human heart with sin and deceit. But God sent himself as a hero to the rescue, who gave his life on a cross to redeem lost humanity and set us free. So the author shows how every great story that really tugs at our heart is really a reflection of the story of God. I liked this short little book and I gave it 4 stars. The rest of the books in this video are books that I received for free from a publisher in exchange for a free and honest review. I read the graphic novel Bunns Rabbit. So Bunns is a rabbit who was born with short ears, and her parents worry that the superstitious other rabbits in the warren will reject her, and they are right. The entire family is going to be evicted from their burrow because the other rabbits think that Bunns will bring bad luck on the whole meadow because of her short ears. So Bunns runs away on her own, hoping that with her gone, her family will be allowed to stay safely in their home. She meets the spirit fox, who sends monarch butterflies to lead her through the forest where she will be tested. And if she is found worthy, the spirit fox may grant her a wish. This was just a really beautiful fairy tale of superstition and magic legends of elemental spirits. I really loved the folklore about the elemental spirits and everything. The best part of the book is how Bunns learns to listen to her own heart song. She can hear the heart song of other animals, but she kind of loses touch with her own heart song. And she has to ignore all the voices in her head that are telling her that she's worthless and unlovable because she's different. She finds her own balance and is finally able to accept the love of her friends and her family. The artwork is utterly gorgeous, and I gave this book 5 stars. I also read The Puppets of Spellhorst. This is about an old sea captain who purchases 5 puppets from a shop window: a king, an owl, a girl and a boy, and a wolf. Each puppet has their own dreams and desires, and when they become the property of 2 little girls, they think they will find their purpose in life in acting out a story with the children. But the obstacles they face are greater than they imagined. I just loved this beautiful story. The characters are really thoughtful and introspective. Each of the puppets' personalities are so different, and they all grow in different ways. I really loved the old-fashioned writing style and the pretty illustrations throughout the book. I gave this one 5 stars, and then I went right on to read the next book. I read The Hotel Balzar. So Marta longs for her father's return after the war, and her mother works as a maid in the hotel, and Marta kind of spends her days wandering around the hotel. And a mysterious countess with a parrot arrives, and she promises to tell Marta 7 stories. The stories seem to have no meaning and no proper ending, but Marta keeps listening, somehow hoping that the stories will point the way to her missing father. Marta is a really complex character. She wants to believe in the stories. She wants to believe her father is coming home from the war. But she gets discouraged. She starts to lose hope, especially as she sees her mother losing hope. The plot is really intricate with all these details that overlap in different areas with the stories that the Countess tells. I just love the aura of mystery around everything, and I gave this one 4 stars. And I read Lost Evangeline. A shoemaker finds a tiny baby hidden in a shoe, and the little girl grows up to be just as small as a mouse. The shoemaker's wife thinks that Evangeline's small size is a sign of bewitchment, and she actually sells Evangeline for a sack of money, but Evangeline escapes and searches for her father. I really loved Evangeline's spunky character. She never gives up. She believes the best in people. She hopes to inspire them to see their own possibilities. I just love a good underdog story, and Evangeline is absolutely adorable, and I gave this one 4 stars. I also read the first 3 books in the Princess in Black series. Princess Magnolia has a secret identity as the Princess in Black. So at home, she wears frilly pink dresses and glass slippers, but then she changes into her monster-fighting black outfit and charges to the rescue when monsters attack the land. These chapter books are just so adorable. I love the fairy tale setting, the pretty illustrations. Princess Magnolia has to be pretty resourceful when it comes to balancing her fancy castle life with her monster-fighting responsibilities. The edition that I read is the Triple Smash, I think it's called. It has the Princess in Black, and then the Perfect Princess Party, and the Hungry Bunny Horde, all of which are utterly adorable. And those are the books that I read in November. Please leave me a comment and let me know what are some books that you've really been enjoying recently. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.